So Ashley Greensmyth, thank you for coming today. Ashley you're a certified counselor in Vancouver. I'm going to provide more information in the YouTube video right below, so you can send me that, whatever you like.
Sure,
and link to your website.
Yeah.
So we're talking about values and passions in this episode. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, still new at this whole stuff, I am. So, okay, first of all, I'm going to refer to the book a little bit in here. And I mentioned in the book that I feel that some of the most interesting people at social gatherings are the ones that are very passionate about something. They've got lots of passion. Do you believe that's the case? Or do you find that's the case as well? Or
that people who are passionate are maybe naturally more intriguing or more interesting?
Yeah.
I would say so, because when I think about passions, they can be deeply personal, and it's kind of an extension of personality. And when you meet someone who's passionate about a subject, whether it's, I don't know, model trains or collecting old books or writing music, to hear another person talk about their craft or something that they love really invites you into their world. And I think that there's a vulnerability in there, that someone will be openly passionate about something that they really love. I think there can also be maybe some intimidation for someone who is not as connected to what their passions are, or maybe what they're seeing another person talk about causes them to maybe reflect, what am I passionate about? Where is my gusto? Where's my magic? Where do I find my magic? And so I think that there can be a balance to be struck there in terms of how do we approach people who we're really interested in meeting and talking to, who are really passionate as well.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I guess I'm trying to find different ways of incentivizing people as opposed to intimidating people. Because, I think that some people, they're in between passions, as one of my friends told me a couple years ago, and he felt a little, not ashamed, but something like, Glenn, I'm always involved in these projects, and he's in between passions at the moment, and he's retired as well. He retired really early, and so he's got a lot of time on his hands. But it's like there's no shame in that. It's just sort of like, I think when you meet someone who's very passionate, it inspires me anyways, and I think it's contagious. So
yeah.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Yeah. So, okay. So what do you think is the difference between, value and a passion? I've got my idea, but in a general kind of way, people kind of conflate the two, right?
Yeah. What I think about the difference between values and passions is that values inform our beliefs. And I think there can be some universality among values. For example, people might value love, family, nature, power, knowledge, and which is not to say that everyone shares these values, but that there can be some universal themes. Whereas passions I see as being deeply individual and can be something that a lot of people are interested in, or it might be more unique. People can be passionate about I don't know, little figurines, or they can be passionate about creating movies. So I think that there's definitely a difference between values and passions, and that they can emphasize different aspects of our commonality too.
Yeah. I mean, we definitely hear about family values. I think if I did a Google search, I wouldn't be surprised if that's one of the most common things. And, you got Christian values from the church. But how, in your experience dealing with clients, how often does it seem that they're very much in touch with their values and passions?
I would say that it varies. And in terms of how conscious people are of their values, I think that people, when they have an opportunity to reflect, they can get a sense of, oh yeah, this is definitely something that I value. Wealth isn't as important to me as health. But I think that it's something that's kind of less known on a conscious level. And I do a lot of exploration with my clients in terms of figuring out, clarifying, what are your values? Exploring, where do these come from? What has inspired it? How has our family or someone who we admire or society shaped the values we live by compared to the values that we want to live by? So there's a lot of exploring that can be done in there. And what I find is that when I do this this exercise or these kinds of exercises with my clients, they're able to apply it to all different areas of their life, whether it's their personal relationships or their work relationships, relationships with friends, getting a sense of how are these different areas of my life lining up with my values. And what we find is that whenever there is a conflict, whenever there's unrest or stress, it's usually able to be brought back to a difference in the values that are being played out right now and what is most important to that person.
Okay. So it's a disconnect maybe from what they're not doing what they value, or they're not in touch with that, or their values change, I guess, right?
It could be that their values changed. It could be that a company they're working for has, let's say a new person has taken over a business and the values that they're operating by now don't have as much of an emphasis on honesty or on the environment. And the person who's in this position is now looking at the differences that are happening around them in their work and saying, okay, well, this isn't really lining up anymore. This isn't what I was sold on, and I'm not happy here.
Yeah. A lot of this comes down to self-awareness, I think, right? I mean,
Totally.
we're not taught this in school. Really necessarily taught this by our parents, right? So, because our parents may not be self-aware, depends, right? So it's sort of after the fact. Often, I guess that's why the counseling as well is a lot of the time, unfortunately, after the fact, that people have to undo problems, right?
Yeah.
But on the positive side, have you found people bond over certain kinds of values and passions when they become friends or as friends? You know, like, do you have like an example of maybe a passion or that people may bond over?
I think absolutely people people bond over values and passions. As I mentioned, values inspire or are a reflection of our beliefs. And so when we find people or we're connecting with friends who have similar beliefs, naturally we're going to have deeper, closer relationships. I like to bring it back to nature because I think that's a common value among a lot of people here on the West Coast, and that's going to be a blanket statement, and maybe it's controversial half of the year.
That's okay.
But what I found is that when people are able to spend time with other people on things that they have a shared value in, then they can have such a richer relationship. Similarly with passions, it can be the glue that brings friendships together. It can be the thing that helps to facilitate new friendships as well. When you're able to engage in something that you really love and you have other people to share it with you, it just makes it so much more special.
Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, I've found there's tons of hiking groups in the Vancouver area. And I've heard from some people that, they can share that value, and then they go on the hike, and either people aren't interested in talking very much, or they're talking a lot, or the conversation type is not really, what they're interested in. And so then they're kind of, by the way, we're an hour and a half from home, and we're going to be on a 3-hour hike together. And so, people want to connect, but I think there's that expectation that it all just will work out fine if we share that same value because we love hiking. And I mean, aside from the whole thing, there's just tons of grades of hiking as well, skill levels and everything like that.
Yeah.
But you must have come across a little bit of that too. Like, yes, you value this thing, but then these other things just don't make it work out, I guess.
Yeah. I think there's something to be said about personality differences. Regardless of if you have shared values, if you have shared passions, there might be different ways that you communicate or that you connect with that. And that's not necessarily going to be captured by having the same value or having the same passion. And I think that's why creating and sustaining friendships is such a selective process, because it's not just the things that we have in common that we both like. It's how do we gel with one another? Am I really introverted and you're really extroverted, and getting a conversation is like, getting blood from a stone? Or is it that there can be a natural flow and we appreciate the same moments of quietness, the same moments of chat, of conversation? Yeah.
I know that I was just going to mention Myers-Briggs as well, because
yes.
a lot of people do it.
I use that a lot.
Popular.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Do people sort of come in with their assessment already, their self-assessment, or do they not even know about it? Like, what's people's familiar with Myers-Briggs these days?
I'm going to say it varies. The majority of the clients who I've worked with are not aware of their personality type unless they have done it as part of maybe formal education. I work with some psychology students, so they might have done the Myers-Briggs, or in their undergrad they might do it. But the majority of people who I work with are not aware. But when we get to talking about the different types, I find that they're able to get a sense of, okay, I'm definitely more introverted, or I'm totally more extroverted. And we'll look at personality types as part of therapy as well to get a sense of where are the growing edges, where are the strengths, what is your natural tendency towards other people. So I find that personality types, Myers-Briggs in particular, is really helpful to look at. I mean, if an ISFJ is going hiking with a bunch of ENTPs, right? This person might feel kind of suffocated by the conversation and all of the noise and chatter and really want the quiet time in nature. Yeah. Similarly, if the situations are reversed, this person might be dying to talk about what they're seeing and take photos and have a chat and enjoy the fresh air and talk about it. And everyone is being a bit more quiet.
Yeah. I can't even remember what mine is. I wrote it down, but I think just because it does change, and I feel like because I haven't done it for a while, that it might just be good to see it again.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And how long does it take to do?
So the full Myers-Briggs personality type inventory, it's a questionnaire. It's kind of cosmopolitan style, yes or no, or selecting among different options. But of course, it's research based, so not like a magazine article. I think it might be something like 30 minutes.
Okay.
There's a website that has an abridged version, and I have found that it translates really well with the full version of the MBTI.
Okay.
And that's what I use with my clients because it's more like a go through, and it takes maybe 5-7 minutes. And you also get additional information about what this personality type means and how to think about the configuration. Yeah.
I think in the friendship context, it's important to talk about what are the consequences when people are not in touch with their values and passions. So we talked a little bit about the positives, right? But
I would say that a consequence of not being in touch with values and passions might be a sense of disconnection or a sense of disharmony in your life, a sense that something is missing and I'm not quite sure what. So to bring this back to values, I'll give an example of an individual who I was working with. We identified what the values were, and she had clarified that nature is a really strong value. This person also happens to experience seasonal depression, or depression with a seasonal pattern is what it's called now. And what we realized was that during the second half of the year, right, when there's less light, when the weather is less sunshiny, they're not spending as much time in nature. And so part of therapy and how we formulated goals around that was looking at ways that she could bring more nature into her home, into her life, into her day-to-day, whether that's looking at things like talking to a naturopath and taking, vitamins that can help to simulate some of those vitamins that you would receive during the sunny parts of the month, or going to Bloedel Conservatory where it's hot and tropical and it feels sunshiny in there. And that was really helpful for her to be able to connect with that and kind of fill that missing piece. And to extend that to passions too, I think that passion can bring a certain fire into your life, can help inspire creativity, can help you to feel more motivated. And what I find is that when individuals aren't connected with what they're most passionate with or passionate about, maybe it's that, someone's really passionate about hockey, but ever since this one injury, they felt ashamed and wouldn't go back to it, or something happened and they're no longer, engaging with that there is a sense of loss and shame builds up around that. So sometimes therapy might be looking at how can we peel back those layers of shame or of whatever the emotional blocks are, or physical blocks in some cases, so that they can become reconnected with that and feel whole again.
Yeah. Cool. Again, back to the book. I don't know if you saw the part where I put in your values and passions, and maybe you get bonus points. Not that we're keeping track of points, if you can sort them. That's sort of my go-to kind of like thing. Do you ever, I don't know, I can't remember, I think we talked about it before, but would you recommend that or something else even better than that? Because the book is constantly under revision, right? So
I like that, honestly. Okay. And the worksheet that I use asks individuals to pick 10 from a list of maybe 20 or so. It's a pretty succinct list, actually. There is a much longer version I use for people who are looking for the challenge. And what they do is after they've selected the 10 that stand out to them, then they put them in order of importance. And what I talk about is it's not to say that if family is important and love is important and you put love first, that family is not important.
Yeah.
It's at the core of your being, at the end of the day, what sits closest to your heart. And so maybe it's taking a list of 10 and just picking random 2 and saying, okay, which one comes first? Definitely health over power. So I think that's a helpful way to have some structure around it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessary for it to become overly complicated.
Yeah.
And certainly not overwhelming, because then people might, discourage or feel discouraged, or, give themselves an out to not do it because it's difficult or it's challenging, but it's meant to be, lighthearted and get you in touch with yourself. So go about it in the way that's going to work for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would this be something that you would do with a friend? I guess it's got to be a pretty close friend, because this is really personal stuff, or by yourself?
I would think that it's more personal.
Okay.
On the path of self-reflection, I think it's helpful to have some solitary time, some moments of solitude to reflect on these things. Absolutely, it's something you can introduce to your friends. And in fact, a majority of the clients that I do this exercise with say, I brought this to work, or I was talking to my friends about it, or I've asked my partner to do this. And so I think that inspires people to feel more connected to themselves. And then they can bring that to other people around them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And I always try to bring in at least one kind of personal question in here if possible. And then you can always say no, of course. But how much would you say that you're currently in touch with your values and passions? And, if so, if you are kind of in touch with them, is there one kind of activity that you share with your friends, that you very value or you're passionate about? Because we were talking about friendship here, right?
Yeah. I would say that I'm pretty connected to my values. I never ask clients to do things that I haven't done myself.
Okay,
so
good.
I did the really in-depth values exercise.
Okay.
Before kind of diving into values and passions and understanding how I can apply it to my life before I'm suggesting to other people how they might apply it to theirs.
Sure.
So I'm really connected with my values, and I can see how it shows up in my day-to-day, curiosity, playfulness, connection, empathy. These are some of my core values. And it certainly comes through in my work and in my other relationships as well, whether it's with friends or family or, people in the grocery store lineup.
Yeah. Okay.
As far as passions that I connect with other people on, I would say music is one of my biggest passions through and through. My family has been very musical, whether it's listening to music or playing instruments. And that has been a theme throughout my entire life. That's something that I get to share with other people as well. I've cultivated a group of friends, throughout the Lower Mainland and also in other parts of the world, just on joined interests in music. So it might be that we all travel to the same place and go to a concert together, or we have ongoing conversations related to music. And that has been such a great source of community for me across my life, for sure.
Yeah, I want to put that in the book too.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to limit it to 42 days just for the 6-week kind of thing, but I feel like live concerts is a big thing that people share with each other. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Fit it in there somehow. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on values and passions? Just since we're right here.
Yeah. I think I would like to challenge anybody who is listening or who's watching to do some discovery around their values and passions, even if you think you know what it is, to maybe do a formal exercise and get a sense of how connected are you to your values? How is it showing up in your daily life? And looking at, what are you passionate about? What is something that you used to spend a lot of time doing as a kid that you don't do anymore? Or in what way does this show up in your life now? These kinds of things can inspire adventure, curiosity, bravery, all of these wonderful, juicy things that we experience when we're kids that we can lose touch with as adults. So that's what I'd like to put forth.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed this podcast, then please like and subscribe, and please help to support this project by donating on our Patreon page. Thanks.